They fired the flare because they were dying. 8 elite SEALs trapped in a kill zone, ammo running low, wounded bleeding into the jungle mud. Their last signal burned orange in the night sky, begging for angels that weren't coming fast enough. But someone was already watching. Someone they'd written off as dead weight. A desk jockey, just sent to observe real operators. In the next 60 seconds, 5 impossible shots would change everything they thought they knew about who the most dangerous person in the jungle really was. Before I show you what happened in that clearing, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. The Zodiac's rubber hull slid over black water as Lieutenant Cade Monroe guided them into a narrow cove. The Philippine night pressed in, salt air mixing with the thick jungle. Monroe kept his profile low, eyes sweeping the dark shoreline. Quiet seas never meant safe seas. 200 meters, Collins whispered from the bow. Break in the rocks. Beach looks clear. No lights. No movement. Monroe nodded. Copy. Sanchez, you're with me. Chew, Collins, take the high ground and hold. Sanchez tapped his shoulder. Ready. Behind them sat the one nobody trusted. Mission Brief called her. Joint Reconnaissance Communications Evaluator. Observer status only. The SEALs had looked her over. Average build, standard gear, no rifle, and nicknamed her Echo Girl. Monroe had asked her name. She gave only, Echo, Observer 7. Now he reminded her, not turning around. You stay on my hip once we hit shore. No freelancing. If you see something wrong, you speak up. Understood? Understood, came the flat, professional reply. Monroe killed the engine. Momentum carried them the last 30 meters. Collins slipped over the side first, boots sinking into chest-deep water. He took the bow line, and they slid through the surf until the Zodiac scraped sand. Fins came off, rucksacks swung up, rifles checked. 2 minutes of silent, practiced efficiency. Beyond the beach, the jungle rose like a fortress wall. Somewhere in that green maze, Intel said, was a weapons cache. Foreign mercenaries, smuggled arms, maybe even missiles. Trouble that needed American eyes. Orders were clear. Find it, mark it, get out. No firefights, no heroics. Just survival and intelligence. They hauled the boat above the tide line, flipping it hull up. Rubber on sand echoed too loud in the silence. Chew dropped to one knee with his thermal scope, scanned the tree line, then whispered, Cold. No movement. Good enough, Monroe said, though his gut disagreed. Wedge formation. 50 meter spacing. Slow and quiet. No comms unless contact. He tested his radio, only static. Moisture and a coming storm would kill communications. Emergency flares were their only backup. Monroe hoped it wouldn't come to that. The team pushed into the jungle, Sanchez on point, Monroe and Observer 7 in the center, Collins and Chew covering flanks. The vegetation swallowed them, air thick and heavy, vines clawing at gear. Observer 7 moved differently, light on her feet, efficient, unbothered by roots and vines that slowed the others. Her gear was stripped down, small ruck, canteen, a hard case on her back. No rifle. No optics. Nothing that said operator. Collins fell in beside Monroe, murmuring, Sir, notice our observer's not carrying serious hardware? Makes you wonder what kind of evaluating she's doing. Eyes on your sector, Monroe replied. But privately, he wondered the same thing. In Monroe's experience, observers usually came equipped to survive combat. Echo 7 looked more prepared for a staff meeting. The trail wound deeper into terrain that seemed built to break men. Limestone shelves made choke points, roots threatened ankles, and the canopy choked out moonlight. Every breath felt like soup. Sweat already soaked through uniforms. Chew suddenly raised a fist. Halt. Ahead, The ground looked wrong. Too neat. Leaves arranged evenly. Soil freshly disturbed. Monroe crouched, ran his fingers through dirt that was loose and recently turned. Purposeful. Human. Echo 7's voice cut the silence. This trail has been prepared. Within the last 48 hours. Whoever did this knew how to camouflage it. Sanchez frowned. You can tell all that from dirt? Tire tracks don't match terrain flow, she said flatly. Ground scraped east to west, but runoff would cut north to south. Leaves are staged. Classic setup for an L-shaped ambush. They want us funneled here. Collins snorted. Didn't know they taught fortune-telling at headquarters. They don't, she replied evenly. They teach reconnaissance. Monroe studied her. She didn't look like a civilian now. Her eyes read the terrain like a book. You're saying we're walking into a trap? He asked. I'm saying this ground doesn't lie. Someone hostile's been here. Sanchez chuckled. Or maybe she's just seen too many war movies. Monroe looked at the path ahead, winding around limestone. The easiest way forward, and maybe exactly what the enemy wanted. Duly noted, he said. We continue as planned. The patrol moved on. But Monroe couldn't shake the sense they'd just ignored a warning they'd regret. Behind him, Echo 7 stayed silent, eyes scanning, reading signs no one else could see. The air grew thicker, heavy with rotting leaves and the sweetness of night-blooming flowers. Every footstep echoed in the silence, and Monroe slowed. Something was wrong. Jungle was never this quiet. No insects. No frogs. No rustle of movement. Just their own footsteps and the faint wind high above. Sanchez felt it too. Like the whole place is holding its breath, he muttered, rifle low as he stepped around a fallen log that looked placed, not natural. Monroe knew the truth. In any jungle, silence meant predators or men. Collins and Chu in the rear moved tighter, tension obvious. The trail itself was too easy. Branches cut back. Roots cleared. Trail maintenance, Chu whispered. Someone fix this path for us. Behind Monroe, Echo 7 moved like a shadow, silent, efficient, untouched by the heat that had the others dripping sweat. She never fumbled, never cursed the vines. Collins noticed. She's moving like she's done this before, he murmured to Chu. Yeah, but she's still not carrying anything that shoots past pistol range, Chu replied. The trail opened suddenly into a small clearing, limestone walls on 3 sides, a narrow gap ahead. Moonlight poured through the canopy, spotlighting the center like a stage. Every instinct Monroe had from 20 years of combat screamed at once. Too clean. Too perfect. Exactly the kind of place where ambushes happen. He raised his fist to halt. But too late. The jungle erupted. Gunfire poured from the limestone above. This wasn't the wild spray of amateurs. It was disciplined fire, overlapping kill zones lit by tracer rounds. Bullets sparked off stone, ricocheting in deadly arcs. At least 4 positions, perfectly placed. Contact left! Contact right! Monroe roared, though everyone already saw it. This wasn't an ambush. It was an execution. Sanchez dubbed behind a log, rifle spitting back north. Collins and Chu scrambled for scraps of cover. Monroe yanked Echo 7 toward a limestone outcropping, expecting panic. Instead, she moved smooth, controlled, like she'd done it before. No screaming. No hesitation. Just tactical precision. From cover, she scanned the ridgeline with the calm focus of an operator, not an observer. Gunfire chewed their shelter to pieces. Monroe tried his radio, only static. Jammed or blocked. Either way, they were cut off. Then Sanchez cried out, a bullet tearing through his thigh. Blood soaked his uniform fast. Pale but still firing, he was wounded bad. Corpseman! Monroe shouted, before remembering they didn't have one. He fumbled for his first aid kit, knowing under fire it wouldn't be enough. That's when Echo 7 did something that stunned everyone. She slipped from cover, trauma kit in hand, gear far beyond standard issue, and began working on Sanchez with practiced efficiency. "Hold still," she said calmly, wrapping a pressure bandage. "Muscle hit, not artery. You'll live if you don't do anything stupid." Monroe stared, trying to process it. The so-called desk jockey was treating a gunshot wound like it was routine. The gunfire slackened, attackers reloading or repositioning. Monroe used the lull to take stock, his mind racing. Monroe counted at least 4 firing positions, maybe more. Professional spacing. Disciplined fire. Coordinated movement. This wasn't bandits. This was a planned ambush by trained fighters. Collins fired at a muzzle flash, but was forced back into cover. "No clear angles. We're bracketed from every side." Monroe's mind raced. They were pinned, low on ammo, outnumbered, no comms, and extraction was still 6 hours away. The nearest friendlies, hundreds of miles. His hand found the emergency flare. One signal. Bright orange. A last resort. It could summon help or invite death. He fired. The flare burst above the canopy, flooding the clearing in harsh orange light. For a moment, enemy fire slackened, the mercenaries recognizing the signal of desperation. Then the shooting returned, harder, heavier, as if permission had been given to finish the job. Monroe pressed deeper into cover as Echo 7 calmly finished treating Sanchez. Then, as bullets ripped overhead, she began coolly assessing the battlefield. 3 positions north wall. 2 on the east ridge. Likely a command element with radios. Machine gun nest in the west outcrop. That's what's pinning your people. Monroe stared. "How can you possibly know that?" She met his eyes. For the first time, something shifted in her expression. "Because I've been counting muzzle flashes, timing their fire rates. And because," she paused, "this isn't my first ambush." Then she reached into her rucksack and pulled out a compact rifle, matte black, well-kept, optics gleaming. Definitely not standard observer gear. Monroe's eyes widened. "Observer 7, you're not authorized to carry that weapon." She was already moving. "Neither are they," she said, nodding toward the mercenaries. "But they're still shooting at us." And then she was gone, vanishing into the jungle like she'd been waiting for this moment all along. A new sound cracked through the chaos, suppressed, precise. Up on the north wall, a muzzle flash simply died, snuffed out like a switch. Chew gaped from behind his log. "What the hell was that?" Another suppressed shot. The machine gun nest fell silent, its chatter replaced by eerie stillness. Collins peered through his scope. No movement. No heat signatures. Nothing. A third shot, this time from a completely different angle. Another enemy position went quiet. The perfect crossfire that had trapped them moments ago was unraveling. Monroe felt it, momentum shifting. Orders shouted in accented English turned frantic, confusion replacing discipline. A fourth shot. The command element stopped transmitting. A fifth. Then silence. Only the sound of someone crashing through brush before vanishing altogether. The mercenaries who had owned the battlefield minutes ago were gone, leaving nothing but smoke, silence, and the echo of their own gunfire. Monroe waited. 30 seconds. Another 30. Then he raised his head. The ridges were dark. Still. "Clear," he whispered. One by one, his team emerged from cover. Collins was first to speak, awe in his voice. 5 shots. I counted 5. And then silence. Who the hell was shooting? Chew asked, though they already knew. Echo 7 stepped out of the jungle as quietly as she'd left. Her rifle hung across her chest with casual ease. She checked Sanchez's bandage, then glanced at the others. "Perimeter's clear," she said, as if she'd just finished a routine patrol instead of wiping out an entire ambush. Monroe found his voice. "Observer 7, what the hell just happened?" "You fired a flare requesting assistance," she replied calmly. "I provided assistance." "That wasn't assistance," Collins said, still staring at her. "That was execution. 5 shots. 5 kills. I've never seen shooting like that." Echo 7 only shrugged. "They chose the wrong profession if they didn't want people shooting back accurately." Chu studied her rifle now. Its worn finish, custom mods, optics worth more than a month's pay. "That weapon, where'd you get it?" "From people who know standard issue isn't always enough." Before more could be said, the thump of helicopter rotors filled the night. The flare had done its job. Extraction was inbound. Monroe looked at her. "You're not coming with us, are you?" She shook her head. "Different extraction. Different mission." "What mission?" he pressed. "The kind that doesn't appear on charts," she said simply. The helicopter's searchlight cut across the clearing. Echo 7 reached into her pouch, pulled out a single brass casing still warm from the rifle, and handed it to Monroe. "Keep that. Remember, sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one you never see coming." Then she turned and disappeared into the jungle, gone as if she'd never been there at all. The helicopter landed, rotor wash scattering debris. The crew chief rushed out, finding 4 SEALs, 1 wounded, all of them staring at the shadows where Echo 7 had vanished after rewriting the battlefield with 5 impossible shots. The wounded SEAL was conscious and stable, treated with medical skill far beyond standard first aid. As the helicopter lifted off and banked toward the ocean, Monroe sat in the red-lit cargo bay, turning the brass casing in his hand. Collins leaned in over the engine noise. "Sir, what are you going to put in your report?" Monroe stared out at the jungle below, knowing Echo Observer 7 was already gone, moved on to whatever shadow mission had brought her there. He closed his fist around the casing. "I'll write that we encountered an unknown sniper who provided covering fire. Details classified. And if they press," he looked Collins in the eye, "then I'll tell them some things are above our pay grade." The helicopter banked east, leaving the jungle to guard its secrets. For the 4 SEALs, Echo 7 was already becoming a ghost story, proof that the quietest person in the fight can be the deadliest. 5 shots. 5 kills. No misses. Competence over credentials. Precision over position. Now tell me, what would you think if you saw someone eliminate 5 targets without ever being seen? Do you believe there are snipers this precise working off the record? And what unit do you think Echo 7 was really from? If this story left you speechless, hit that like button, subscribe with the bell on, and share it with someone who knows the best shooter is often the one no one ever sees. More stories like this are waiting for you.